Good evening, everyone. Welcome to episode 236 of The Ball is Round. My name is Andy Coronado, and we have a big show for you guys tonight. We'll be diving into CF Montreal and Rose FC summer transfer window. We'll also answer all your questions from the chat, so make sure to write in your questions. We're going to be talking about the transfer windows, their performances, Luca Saputo's press conference. We got it all. We're gonna talk about a lot of things today. But as you can see, as always, I'm joined tonight by my man, Elias Gregoriadis. How are we doing, man? Can you see how rusty I am right now?
Fantastic. Or yeah, I mean, look, speak for yourself. I just played the intro twice, so
Dude, we take a
you know
week
what?
off and we're off, man.
Shit hits the fan. Hey, LP Habs fan, how you doing? Thank you for coming to the show. We're doing great, though. I'm doing fantastic. Barcelona won, Montreal won, the Roses won. It's very rare, given the state of some of these clubs, that I get a perfect weekend. So, you know what? I'll take what I can get. I'll take what I can get. 3 wins in one weekend. In one day, really. It was all Saturday. So, you know what? Hell yeah. Good evening, Patrick.
I'm completely disconnected this week. I was on vacation. I was off in Orlando. As you can see my little funny ears in my head here. I took a week off to disconnect, and you know what a great week to do it, Elias, this week, to completely disconnect and just, you know, not check my phone while I'm waiting in line for a Disney ride, not be shocked by everything that drops every minute, not getting people mad around me because I'm not advancing in line as I'm shocked with everything I read. You know, it was just a complete week of disconnect, Elias, you know, so nothing much happened this weekend. Right, this week, nothing much happened. Just a regular,
very casual week. Yeah, absolutely. You know,
nothing much to do. Very bored out of our minds. So that's why we have such a big show. We have an incredible show with a lot of things to talk about that happened this week, which I'm super excited to get into.
Yeah, for sure.
But before we get started, of course, just a quick reminder that if you listen to the show and like what you hear and see, especially my ears, click on the subscribe button to support The Ball is Round. While you're at it, make sure to also subscribe to all of our social media platforms for daily updates. All right, man, let's get right into it. First things first, CF Montreal summer transfer window. A lot of coming in and coming out. Elias, we can just go ahead and show us a little bit of what happened this past week.
Jeez.
So let's talk about some of the latest arrivals, right? Because there were departures, but let's talk about the arrivals. First off, the DP. Now, I'm not going to get, right now, we're not really going to get into the contractual details. We don't really want to talk about that. But Ivan Jaime came in as a DP on a loan. He's the big signing. They even had a presentation for him at halftime yesterday with the special announcement, Gem, which was honestly fantastic. I loved it.
That was cute.
It was really cool, but it took a minute for people to get it.
I didn't get it until someone told it to me. Then I thought it was cute. But
yeah, exactly. But I right away understood. I was like, oh, that's actually really creative. And we'll get into it a little bit later about, you know, the creativity behind all, you know, the transparency of the team and all that, how they're working on the communication, which I personally I'm very up for it. So we had Ivan Jaime that came in as a DP. He's a right winger, left winger, but also an attacking midfielder, based on what I've seen. We see Mike Adedokun, but we'll talk about the departure a little bit later. And then we have Bode Hidalgo, a right back from Real Salt Lake, and Matthew Longstaff from the other team. I'm not even going to bother to say their name. Thomas Gillier, and I only include obviously the ones that are the summer transfer window, who also came from a loan from Bologna, and Efrain Morales that came from Atlanta United. So that was the arrivals. Now let's talk about the departures, right? Because there were some departure. We mentioned a little bit earlier, Michael Adedokun, who was permanently transferred to Lexington SC, where he was loaned out for since the beginning of the season. He was a super draft pick for this new sporting direction, which I found interesting. I was obviously watching his games and trying to see what kind of player he was, and he was actually standout at the USL. So good for him. Then we had Caden Clark to DC United, Joel Waterman to the Chicago Fire, Jules Anthony Velsain to the other team, George Campbell, West Bromwich, we already talked in this show, and we're not going to delve into it more than that. Nathan Saliba, that went on also to Anderlecht, and Dominic Yankov, that also left the team. So let's talk a little bit about this. We shared the facts, we shared what happened and everything. What grade, Elias, would you give this window? Since this is the first one since the club's declaration of a rebuild, right? So, what grade are you giving
Give it a C plus.
it? Okay, why?
I'll give it a C plus. It's like, bang down the middle. They did some stuff that I liked. They did some stuff I liked a little bit less. They did some stuff that was unfortunately necessary. Talking about obviously Joel Waterman's departure, because let's face it, it's he was going to be a rotational player. He was no longer assured a starting spot, and in a World Cup year, you're fighting for that third spot. You need to be in the starting picture for your team, especially at the MLS level. So honestly, that Joel one was understandable. Caden Clark, I was disappointed by. I understand the fact that the likelihood of a contract renewal was not possible or was not likely, so they kind of decided to cash in when they could. But having a player like Caden Clark come off the bench in a situation like if you're going to have Ivan Jaime, Oyer Escobar, and Hennady Sinchuk as your three attackers behind a striker for the future, having someone like Caden Clark come off the bench is worth its weight in gold. But again, amongst all the disappointing stuff that I thought, oh, that's a shame, but it's necessary. Ivan Jaime is a great pickup. Ivan Jaime is an extremely talented player. He's capable of making something out of nothing, which is, as we've discussed on the podcast before, is something that the club desperately needs going forward. Is a player that can, that doesn't necessarily need a whole lot of combination play to make it work. But yeah, Patrick saying a B just for the designated player. I get it, given the standard of the
Yeah.
windows of the past 3 years, But again, this is a team that they bet on themselves and they announced to the public and the whole wide world, this is a rebuild. We're taking this seriously and we're going to do it properly. So like, okay, but you have to show for it, right? So a designated player was the minimum, I feel like, if you want to have even a passing grade. And now it's more about the other stuff, right? We talked about the desperate need for depth at fullback. They went and bought Bude Hidalgo. Great pickup for not too much. Matty Longstaff, we're going to get into his game on last night. But again, you fill a needed spot and you get rid of a player who was not even on the bench. So again, besides the $275,000 in GAM, you're not really giving up all that much. So all these things, again, I'm not going to give them, we're not going to throw them a parade yet, but a C plus, a B minus, somewhere in that realm, I think is fair deserved.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I don't want to go too high, give it a B or an A, because no, we're very far from that. I think it was a window that it's not the prettiest transfer
Mm-hmm.
window, because it's where you kind of have to take advantage of getting rid of a lot of players. So out with the old, in with the new. That's what we do when we do a rebuild, right? And just in general, and people love using the example of a house or building, right? Whenever you're rebuilding a house or building, you really got to start from the core, and it's not just about the players on the field. It goes way beyond that. It goes, you know, we talked about it before, some of the structures that they have around the team that make this team what CF Montreal is, right? And unfortunately, that comes at the cost of a leader, which is Joel Waterman. So that to me lowers the grade a lot. But we talked about it a lot in this show, Elias, where we talked about Joel Waterman and the season he's been having, where we questioned it a lot. Was like, is he really part of the plans of this team? Is he really the leader we want to have with this club? Because ironically enough, he was one of the ones that came out after that rebuild letter came out, right? He along with Samuel Pietz came out to talk about it, showing that they wanted their leaders to talk about it. And unfortunately, it comes at a cost of his place of the squad. Now, again, it could be a very good deal for him. It could maybe a change of environment, maybe a change of thing could show that you could maybe get the best out of him. But the reason why I also give it a C is because it's the ugly part where we see all these players that went out that were, for the most part, failed projects. Failed projects, with the exception of obviously Caden Clark, which I think was successful in its own way because he was getting back to shape, but back to form, if you want. Um, but it wasn't the most perfect window. Now, the fact that they got a DP, and there were rumors. Obviously, we don't discuss a lot about rumors in this show, but there were a lot of rumors that other targets that they got and how ambitious they were being, which is very, very impressive. And hopefully, that kind of ambition continues on. But it's also, I think, and we'll talk about it a little bit later about Luca Saputo's press conference, but it showed that they're also open to admitting that they've made mistakes, or maybe that things didn't work out the way they wanted, and they seem very level-headed when approaching this window. So that's one of the things that I really like. All right, so I know you already touched on it a little bit, Elias, but when we talk about the players that left the team, was there any player in particular that maybe you like that I don't want to use the word like, but like that you're okay with the move, say, right? Like it's good for them, it's good for the team, it's something that or maybe a move that you're like, nah, they shouldn't have let that player go.
Look, and if I'm the club and I can keep Joe Waterman, I do it 100%. He just signed a new contract. He's been here. He is at this point the second most senior player at the club behind Samuel Piet. He knows everything about the club, the city. He's become a leader. He's become one of the most important leaders on and off the field. And if I can keep him at the club, even as a rotational player, because that's probably what was going to be his role in the next year or two, then I take that. But Joel Waterman doesn't want that. And I understand that because, again, it's a World Cup year and he needs starting minutes to get to the point where he can convince Jesse Marsch that, yeah, not only do I deserve to be in the squad, but if you're subbing out a center back, I'm the one that has to go on. So he didn't have the best season. I think everyone that's seen I think he'll admit it to you. This was not, his best run of form, but he still has a level of quality that is deserving of the national team. And the only way to convince Jesse Marsch of that and of his need to not to really make the flight because it's in North America, but to be included in that squad of 23 people is the fact that he is starting week in, week out. And I don't think he can afford to wait until the offseason to then go, oh, by the way, in 2026, you're going to be kind of a rotational player because Neil is here, Morales is here, Craig is playing slightly below your level, but is also 7 years younger than you. So all those things considered, I don't think he wants to. I think he'd rather move now than move later and get settled in his new club. And he fits into Greg Berhalter's system really well. Again, it is a 4-back, which is not ideal for him because he does leave a lot of space, but Greg Berhalter loves to keep the ball. Chicago loves to keep the ball. And that's right into his wheelhouse. So again, I wish no ill will onto anybody that leaves the club. Unless they deserve it. And Joe Waterman is not somebody that deserves it. He's been a phenomenal representative of Quebec soccer, especially as far as, players from outside Quebec coming into this culture and embracing it. So, yeah, you know what? I hope he makes the World Cup team, and I look forward to cheering him on then. But unfortunately, no point up until that point.
Yeah, but that's kind of and that's a big one, right?
Yeah.
And that's a big topic of this transfer window. And I think we have a lot of people that are talking about Waterman in our chat as well, right? Because he was the big move. And honestly, Elias, when I saw that move come out in my X page, I was like, oh boy.
They're not fucking around.
I'm like, oh boy.
That was my reaction. They're not fucking around.
I know it's they said guys, this is a rebuild. If you guys weren't clear as to what we meant by doing a rebuild, this is it. This is where we're starting. This is a rebuild. And yeah, it's definitely one of those things that like you mentioned, right? We obviously don't wish ill will on anybody, but definitely want the team that they're part of to not be above CF Montreal, right? We don't want them to have success, but in any case, the point being is Joel Waterman was a big part of this team, and beyond the play in his field, like you mentioned, he would tell you himself that he maybe didn't have his best season or the expectations that that he had for himself. But so what does the club do next with him, right? Do they continue having him around as a replacement, even if he's a big influence on the team, and maybe take that co-captain's armband away from him, maybe tell him that not to influence his colleagues so much? Or do you just transfer him to another team and maybe give him the opportunity to like have a new reputation, a new locker room, a new faces? And that's where I think the team said, you know what, we think we're going to take that step where he's going to just have to go to another team because we need a new voice. Someone like Prince, right? Prince is now wearing the captain's armband. because of Samuel Piet's injury. We have no idea how long that's going to take. But he's a new voice. He's a new voice, and he's clearly showing it by showing up every single game day and just performing. Which was not what Joel Waterman was doing. So do I like that move? Maybe not the fact that Waterman left, but I think it's a win-win for both teams, especially when we're talking about a rebuild, right? Now, what about
like David Weiss said, right? 700,000 in salary is a lot, and Brendan Craig, who again is not playing at Joel Waterman's level, but is playing damn well near close to it, especially in the last couple of weeks. All while being again significantly younger and costing what he's getting paid. We talked about this in the press box. He's getting paid like 80. Yeah. He's getting paid $90,000 a year, right? The three trialists between the three are making 300,000. So financially, there's no way you pay someone 700,000 and they're not playing. And Patrick said as well, right? You have 800,000 coming off the bench for Wusu stays. That's entirely different because you're not having $700,000 come off the bench as a defender and having $800,000 come off the bench as an attacker are worlds apart. $700,000 in MLS should get you a top 10 defender in the league. Having 800,000 come off the bench, Mahala Poku makes more than that, right? So people coming off the bench making that much, making time money is not ridiculous. Defenders making that kind of money, that gets a little bit pricey.
Yeah. And so we talked a little bit about the players that left, right? What we liked, what we disliked. Again, we talked a lot about Joel Waterman. Something I maybe didn't like was the fact that Clark left. I thought he was picking up steam, but at the same time, in the bigger picture, it's very hard to find Clark a position in this scheme. And more than anything, especially after last night's game, and we'll get into it, right? Ojer Escobar, that's to start yesterday's game, had an amazing game. And now it almost makes you think, was Escobar being held back by the fact that Clark was there and that he had earned his right for the start? So you're happy to see Clark go for maybe, again, a system that fits better his style of play. But at the same time, it comes at the cost of like, getting and missing out on a player that knew the league, had a lot of experience, and was picking up steam so obviously for Clark, it's going to be I think we're going to keep a close eye on him to see how he excels in that DC United team, because I do believe that if it doesn't go well in DC United for Caden Clark, I don't know where he's going to turn to next. He's already been to Europe. This would be his third MLS team since Europe. And if he doesn't find that kind of success, then there's something there. There's something that, and he's young. I don't know his age right now by the top of my head, but I believe 25, which is your prime, and you're in your third MLS team. So at some point it has to click at some point, and it can't be. I don't like players that need to be in the perfect system for them to flourish. I mean, at that age,
I'm lying. I'm an idiot.
Jesus, you gave him 3 years. He's only 22 years old. What are we even talking about?
He carries himself like such a mature individual. No, I don't know what age people are.
But
the second they're younger than me, you're 15 years old.
Imagine me. Anyways,
you're 40. You're 50.
I'm a trophy husband. That's what I am. Anyways, so we're gonna talk about. So I didn't mention it. This is something I wanted to talk about because this feels like it was 2 months ago, but it was actually a week ago. And last week we didn't have a show, so we didn't really get to talk about it. But in the middle of this whole transfer window, the team announced the departure of Corey Ray.
Yep.
And they talked about it a little bit more in the press conference, and we'll talk about the press conference. What the fuck?
I'm not surprised.
Me neither, but still,
there's reports coming out that he's increasingly less involved. We see less movement on that front, right? And then it comes out during the press conference that some of the big inter-MLS acquisitions, we're talking Efrain Morales, we're talking about Joel Escobar, Caden Clark, were not even his players, right? We were speculating in the press box that, maybe the trialists were his players. And when it comes to maybe picking bang for your buck value, because again, those three trialists, Dante Seeley, Luca Saputo, and Brendan Craig, collectively are getting paid $300,000, which is, again, regardless of how you feel about them, that is insane value. Honestly, those are good pickups. But again, we don't know the extent, and Luca Saputo didn't really want to elaborate on what exactly his involvement was, but he was very quick to point out exactly who people still with the club were recommending. So when it comes to maybe big money transfer, I mean, we have the idea that Jaquil Marshall-Rudy was a Corey Ray guy, and that did not go great. I'd love to see him in this new system when he comes back as an attacker, not as a fullback, because he's basically Alexander Gaboglu. He is not a fullback. He is a winger.
I don't think he's coming back.
If he does come back and they've got him on a decent salary, then I wouldn't hate that. I think he deserves a chance, but definitely not as a fullback. So at that point, remember, a lot of people are going to be leaving, and if we're talking about what the team needs to do in the next transfer window, there's gonna be a mass exodus, right? So there's going to be room for people that maybe didn't have the look or that were loaned out. They're going to have room for those kinds of guys to step in and maybe, carve out a little space for themselves in the lineup.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into what needs to be done in the next transfer window, because it almost feels like once that clock hit 1 a.m., there were still a lot of moves where you're like, what happened to this profile? What happened to that profile? Like, there's still things that need to be done, right? It's a rebuild, and they made it a point in the letter to put that they need several transfer windows to fix this. So let's talk a little bit, because I know that I talked a little bit about Caden Clark, and I had some people we have some people in the chat that put in some of their thoughts. So we had Dave that said there's no way they're turning down 700 cash, not GAM, for Clark, which is
it's
something that I liked.
100% true.
I liked about this particular transaction was that they actually if we're talking business, Elias, forget about the product in the field. We're just talking about a business product here. This is in every sense.
That's 13 cripples in profit.
Yeah.
So hell yeah, you take that.
Exactly. And then we Tate says, I'm a fan of Caden Clark. Was sad to see him go. Again, Tate, I agree with you. Sad to see him go because he would, but this is the part where we have to, if you really want to understand what's going on, and this is not just towards State, it's anybody, like, if you see it from the business perspective of what the Saputos are looking at, is it makes perfect business sense. You're capitalizing on a product that is on a hot run right now, and that clearly impressed the coach when they just played against them. They literally just played DC United. We don't know how long the DC United had been scouting Caden Clark or what was the interest, but they literally just played him. And the coach said, I love that kid. Whoever that is, get him. And they did. They found a way. And did they overpay? We have no idea. We'll never know. We'll see how he performs with DC United. He wasn't even in the bench yesterday. It might have been too early. But let's see here. We had also... I think that's all we had for Caden Clark, but yeah. So we do have a few opinions. Now you touched on it a little bit already, Elias. What does this team need to do for the next transfer window?
Respectfully, get rid of a lot of dead weight. Not from a quality perspective, just from a minutes perspective. You've got people that have not seen the light of day except for absolute emergencies. I'm talking about Sunus Ibrahim. I'm talking about Mahalo Poku. I'm talking about, Jean-Anthony Vicin, who did in fact leave. But there's also some other players that, I think are in a very precarious position. One is, unfortunately, Giacomo Vrioni. Yes. Right? There was literally no downside to bringing him in. From a footballing perspective, you got a guy with a lot of MLS experience and a high standard of play. From a financial perspective, you get somebody who's basically being paid by another team to play for you. So there was literally no downside, and I still feel let down. Right? And it's unfortunate because injuries kind of sidetracked. There's a freak arm tendon injury that kept him out for months. There's another relapse. There's this, there's that. He came into training camp injured. He left training camp. Every single way that this could have halted his integration into the group and developing any kind of rhythm happened. It was a textbook worst case scenario, Murphy's Law, and I feel genuinely bad for him. But if you're going to go out there and you're going to sign another striker, you don't need two designated player strikers if you're planning on keeping Prince. And so I think you have the time now, you have a bit of cash in your pocket, you have this new momentum and this new identity. You have to really put your foot down and say, Jack Mulroney is either coming back next year as a full-fledged designated player and he's taking the rest of this the entire offseason to make sure that he arrives at training camp fully fit, or thank you for your service, Jack Mo, and we'll see you around.
Yeah. I mean I think that's the priority, right? They've already proved at this window that they want to get rid of players that either don't want to be in the team, and this is something that Luca Saputo spoke in the press conference this week. George Campbell, Nathan Saliba, again, I don't believe the way he says it also is not in a mean, evil way that they didn't want to be in the team.
It's not a disdain for the club.
They just had different ambitions, and they just and they were offered to stay at the club, but they decided to go elsewhere, and that's fine. That's their vision. But there's also players that, like, as you mentioned, and it's a heavy word to use, but that are dead weight to the club, in the sense that, yes, they might have ambitions to go to Europe, they might have ambitions to go to a bigger club, okay, but they don't show enough in practice to give them those minutes during the games and to be able to give themselves that highlight reel to be able to provide to other clubs. Literally, they're sitting in the bench, and the clubs can't really see them or see what's going on and make any offers, because at this point, I think all they're relying on is whatever their agent is saying to the team and saying, yeah, he's really good. He just hasn't had good luck with CF Montreal, but that's not enough. And that's why I don't think they made the move. But as of the next transfer window, these talks better start becoming a little more serious. And I think at some point, CF Montreal might even, unfortunately, be forced to just take any deal to hopefully get any kind of transaction out of it. Because, again, they're not showing the players. And Elias, you and I have both gone to practice. We watch these players practice on the weekday because, yes, we watch the games, but most of the time they're on the bench. But in practice, they're forced to practice. And to me personally, these players that you're talking about, besides obviously Vrioni, who was injured, they didn't show much either to be like, whoa, he stands out in practice. He stands out in practice. Why isn't he getting playing time? There was never that thought in my head. I just thought they were just players that were doing the bare minimum to get through practice. And again, maybe a change of environments is for them. Maybe they don't like Montreal. Maybe they don't like the club, whatever it may be. But it doesn't fit what they have here. So that next transfer window. Now, we talked about getting rid of the dead weight. Is when we talk about getting rid of, also in the next transfer window, we have to talk about the players that need to come in, right? And I believe that the biggest needs right now is not that next DP, is not that next big name. It would be nice to have a big name. What I think this team needs is depth. I always forget that word. But more players to rotate the squad so that you don't run any player down, or like we talked about this in the show with Victor Lotori playing way too many games and Prince Owusu playing way too many games where they can just catch a break and the level of play doesn't go down when these subs come onto the field, right? So because that's one of the biggest issues that this team has faced this season is the lack of depth and the lack of adequate reinforcements to allow them to be competitive in the game throughout 90 minutes. That's what do you think? What do you think of that, Elias?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the depth has been an issue, especially in midfield and in the fullback position. I think those are the two spots that have been the most painful. So someone like Bode Hidalgo coming in definitely brings some kind of not just competition but reinforcement. And again, Matthew Longstaff is a good pickup, but Matthew Longstaff, Bryce Duke, and Victor Lotori being the only natural 8/6s at your club is not enough. Again, they're always saying if we had depth in the bench last night, we're winning 3-1 or 4-1 instead of almost having to tie the game. That's probably true. But at the same time, the people that made the mistakes that led to the goal were on the field the entire game.
Yeah.
So I mean, we'll get to what went down last night a bit later in the pod, but I agree with you if that you have, again, Owen Graham Roche had a good performance, but having someone like Prince Owusu coming off the bench is much more potent than having someone like Owen Graham Roche currently off the bench. So yeah, I mean, depth just to help you manage a game or to help you kill off a game. I think both are important, and you have to know when to use one or the other. You can't just always try to kill a game off because that's how you get countered and then you lose points. But Depth in those two positions specifically are absolutely musts.
Yeah, 100%. And we're going to be keeping a close eye. And just before we move on to the next topic, we had Dave's tweet that actually he told us a little bit his thoughts on
Yeah, and it was an interesting question too, right? There's some positivity with some of the players acquired ago, but it still hasn't feel like anything has changed. Besides, obviously, even Jaime, do you feel like this is a different CF Montreal transfer window, or is it kind of par for the course?
I think it's a start. I think it's a start. I think it's definitely they're showing the direction that they want to go to. Is it going to be a night and day change where everything's gonna go all right? I don't think so. But I think with the changes that they've made, Elias, I think they kind of sent a message to the locker room. You're getting rid of a Joel Waterman. Joel Waterman is not anybody in that locker room. I'm not talking about skills, Elias. I'm just talking about as a person in the
Yeah,
locker room. Um, Anybody that isn't up to what the club wants or the vision or whatever it is, which obviously you hope that the players are clear as to what the club expects of them, you're out of the door. You're out of
yeah,
the door, and that's as simple as that. And I think that's what kind of changes is the message that's coming in the locker room. We talked yesterday in the press conference, right? A lot of I think it was Prince Owusu, Fernando Alvarez, both mentioned in their own way that they said, "Hey, this group though is very tight. Is very tight." And maybe it's that maybe seeing those faces being gone
yeah.
that they realize, you know what, or maybe going through these shitty moments that they've gone through this season that they've all of a sudden said, you know what, f everything outside of this these walls. We are a family. We're here together. But even if you're a family, that doesn't mean that you're not. The club can't release you or transfer you or whatever it may be, right? So I think it's a start. I don't think we'll see a change necessarily from night to day. Maybe in the next 3 weeks or maybe the last game of the season. We don't know, but I think it's a start.
Absolutely. I Yes and no. I agree with you, but I also kind of agree with David, where besides even Jaime, didn't really feel all that different in terms of the acquisitions. But you're right. In terms of the players let go, they sent a very strong message because Caden Clark and Joel Waterman were two players that I thought had absolutely no chance of leaving the club, especially not in the middle of the season. Off season, maybe, if you're trying to make some room in your roster. But in the middle of the season, in the summer window, I thought those two players were as safe as anybody. So that does send a message. However, regardless of how you receive that message, it sends one. But in terms of the players they brought in, it did feel kind of regular. I'd like to see them make again a big splash in MLS. I'm not talking about $8 million for Georgi Mihailovic splash necessarily, but just throw your weight around. You've got all this cash and all this gam. Spend it on a big MLS player. I'd love to see that.
And it's not to say that they haven't tried, right? Like, I think they did try their hand, and maybe it's an experience and competence, whatever you may call it. It's. I think it's an experience that they're just kind of trying to see
Yeah.
what works, what doesn't work, up to what extent they can be pushed around, up to what extent they don't want to be pushed around. I think there's a lot of pride involved as well as that they're just young kids. They're young kids. You're assuming along with Gabriel
Yeah.
Gervais that is hopefully giving them the right advice as to how to handle these negotiations, including with former employees like Olivier Renard and at Anderlecht. Right, so it's very very tricky ground. But let's go ahead.
Apparently that was very civil, right? Luca Saputo said that was very civil. That's a good segue, like you said.
Everything's super civil, right? When you're talking to public. So let's go ahead and talk about it. We talked a lot about
Let's do
it
it.
during the show already. Now we're gonna get right into it, right? So Luca Saputo's first press conference with CF Montreal this week. What were your key takes away? I was kind of listening to it from the side, but what were your key takeaways?
The club wanted to really project. I feel like they wanted to project two things: competence and stability.
Mhm.
And they did both. Luca Saputo did a good job at appearing on top of everything. They didn't want to seem like they're running with their head on fire. Obviously, with the season you've had and this promise to rebuild, you have to now project an image of we are well aware of what the plan is and how we have to go moving forward. So I feel like they did a good job of that. And I feel like showing that this is stable and everything about this past window that just happened is exactly what you wanted in your first window of however many windows, plural, you plan on doing this rebuild over. If this is this, they wanted this to seem like a successful step one, and I got that impression. Again, whether or not it is remains to be seen. I'd love to see Ivan Jaime suit up for Toronto. I don't know if he will. He may be on the bench. Marco Dondell kind of hinted at that after last night's game, but again, a lot remains to be seen. Everyone else in the market has either played multiple games or has not been registered yet in Bully Hidalgo. So again, there's a lot of unanswered questions, but I genuinely think that this went as well as they could have expected.
I think that some of my key takeaways were just that Luca Saputo stood in front of the media and said, "Ask me whatever you want. I'm an open book." Now, obviously, some of the questions that he answered, some of the answers he gave, better said, were very, you could tell, were very politically scripted. And that's okay. He's new. He's maybe can't improvise right now on the spot. But one of the things that really stood out to me, Elias, was when he, I think they asked him about some of the players that left, and he talked about Jose Anthony Vilsain, and then he said, "Do you want me to list all of them?" And everybody kind of chuckled a bit.
I don't think he's being sarcastic. I think he genuinely wanted to know what
he did.
I think he said, Sid. I think Sid asked the question, right?
Yeah, and he said, "I'll list it. I don't mind, guys." Yeah,
you're right though. It shows a bit of freshness. He's not sure what you were asking him.
Yeah, so I thought that was impressive in that sense. And like I'm an open book. I'm here for you guys, and I'm not nervous about the moment. We don't know what's going on in his mind. I mean, maybe he was really, really nervous, but he showed a lot of confidence and transparency. Even when they asked him some really tough questions. When they talk about the tough questions, and we're not going to get into it in this show, but when we talk about the rebranding, right, which is a big separation between the fans and the club, he said it. He answered it in his own way, in a very honest way. Like, I've been here in this club my whole life. Literally. I mean, there's some fans that can say, "I've been a diehard fan since day one." That's okay. But Luca Saputo has been born
into the club. Yeah,
exactly. So he's like, the Montreal Impact name means a lot to me. It literally warms my heart, and it's fair. And I think that those are the kind of questions that maybe another time, somebody else would have said, "I don't want to talk about it. Next topic," kind of deal. But he said, "You know what? No, I'm just going to be honest." So I really like that. But there were also some questions that I felt that he kind of didn't really give the answer we were looking for. He seemed to kind of twist it again, maybe the politically correct. Specifically, Elias, and I talked to you about this last night, was the Corey Ray question, where he said he stated everything that Corey Ray didn't do, but he didn't state what Corey Ray did. Because he said, "Oh, you know what, Caden Clark, that was not Corey Ray." And it's like, okay, good to know. But the question was, what did Corey Ray do? And why did you guys let him go? So those are some of the questions where I was like, what are you trying to do? So what grade would you give Luca overall during this press conference?
For his performance, I'll give him a B+.
Same.
I think he hit all his points. I think he did exactly what they wanted to do. He conveyed the message they wanted to have conveyed, and he didn't really mess up any questions significantly. And I think that's kind of the best you could hope for given the first 2/3 of the season, right? You could have, if it wasn't for this letter, there would have been an angry mob, and Ivan Jaime, obviously, there would have been an angry mob there instead of, a relatively cordial press conference. So
he was unafraid of that, and I would give him also a B, just because again it's his first press conference and he was unafraid of answering. And it's a tough moment. Nobody I think wants to come out, anybody, not just because it's Luca Saputo, nobody wants to come out as a brand new sporting director, whatever title you want to give them, to answer the tough questions, especially after the tough seasons that CF Montreal has been having and all the hiccups that have gone on in the past few years, rebranding, people leaving all the club. He had to, it's now he's the porte-parole. He's the one that answers the question. Before it was Gabriel Gervais, now it's going to be him. And he made that point clear. He's like, "I'm going to be the one answering questions." And he even said, "I understand the family name I have. I understand Saputo. I understand why you correlate this," especially when he was asked about the Forbes article, right?
What a stupid article. I hate that shit.
Let's not get into it.
I hate covering the media. What a stupid fucking article.
It was. I read it and I was just like, "What are we doing? Like,
Whatever.
what are we doing, guys?" But so yeah, I did like it, but I want to see more. Just like any
Yeah.
player, right, guys? We say it in this show. Any new player on the field can have a fantastic first game, and we can say they're the next great thing. But the truth of the matter is that we need more games to see
Yeah.
really, really the good and the bad, right? So for a first press conference, I think he did okay. I don't think the media held back either. I liked a lot of the questions; they're very transparent. But there's going to be tougher moments and hopefully better moments where he'll also be as
Yeah,
transparent
for
as he
sure.
was. Is there any particular point that maybe he didn't cover and maybe avoided that you would have liked to be a clearer answer? And I
I
ask that
mean,
because and I'll tell you why, Elias, because Dave mentions it. Okay, if they're
yeah.
aware of their issues, he has his own opinions, and you're entitled to that, Dave. But you asked a question, right, Elias, about MLS Next Pro. You asked it pretty straightforward. What's going on with the MLS Next Pro, right? And they wouldn't have answered your questions regarding the MLS Next Pro the way they did. They have a failed development program period. They said this has been good. Okay, that's his opinion. But I want to know, was there a question maybe in particular, especially the ones you asked, that you would have liked a better answer or no?
A better answer as in what I would have rather he answered, or better answer as in the quality of his answer is not good, or different things. In terms of the quality of an answer, I don't think at any point he gave a poorly constructed answer. But yeah, obviously when it comes to when I asked him about MLS Next Pro, again, every single time anyone, whether it's Olivier Renard, Gabriel Gervais, Luca Saputo now, anytime a media member asks them about MLS Next Pro, it's like a hopeful shot in the dark saying, "Oh my God, maybe he'll say yes this time." But deep down in my heart, when I was asking the question, even before when I just thought of asking the question, I knew what the answer was going to be, and he said it straight away. Financially, for them, it doesn't make sense, and financially, it's not happening.
But they are
And
still looking at options.
but they're still looking at options. Well, what the hell? What does that even mean? Because that's so annoyingly vague. The question that I was a little bit miffed by was actually my follow-up, because I asked them about the loan structure and how people like, not just as Alessandro Biello, who's played like who's playing like Sunus Ibrahim minutes with the Halifax Wanderers, but you'd look at Jean Rassi, who had two relatively successful years at Atletico Ottawa. He didn't get his loan picked up. You looked at Matteo Schiavone. You look at a handful of other players that have been loaned out, that came back to MLS or and failed, or didn't come back at all, right? Jean-Paul Sirois is the only player you can claim to have successfully been loaned out and come back and actually integrate into the team. But I was going to list a bunch, but again, David kind of did the work for me. But Karifa Yao, Ferdinand, Bassong, Jean Yerassi, Rida Zouir, Sean Rea, Jonathan Vincent. Jonathan Vincent didn't get loaned out, actually. He when Hernan Losada wanted him loaned out, he stayed. Jaquil Marshruti will wait to see, but the point still stands. CPL, USL, the loan is extremely dubious. And Patrick said it. Sean Rea is an MLS Next Pro talent. Jonathan Vincent is an MLS Next Pro talent. Georgia Quizera is an MLS Next Pro talent. All these players would have been perfect candidates for MLS Next Pro. Fernando Alvarez, when he got to the team, was playing in League One Quebec, then known as the PLSQ. No, he should be in an MLS Next Pro team. He should be playing in a professional team. That's why he signed a professional contract. So that kind of bugged me, because they kind of just said, no, the loans are going well, and we'll look at maybe Primavera in Bologna. That's not the solution.
Yeah.
The solution is having players in North America loaned out in North America successfully, or playing in your North American MLS Next Pro team. Because you have players that leave your academy to sign in, the CPL or the USL, and you don't even get the chance to loan them out. So all this to say that question did bug me a little bit. That answer did bug me a little bit. But again, this is nothing that I didn't already expect. It was just, I thought, if you're committing to this rebuild, maybe you're also committing to the rebuild of the academy structure. It's clear that they're not. And so the academy is going to continue to struggle unless they find gems that are so good that even the academy structure can't hold them down, like Ismail Kone, Mathieu Chouanière, Nathan Saliba, people like that are just too good to have the academy fail them.
You know who needs to answer that question, seriously? It's not Luca. You know who has to answer? It's his brother.
Simone. Absolutely.
Simone has.
But we're not. What are the odds we get multiple press conferences with the sporting leadership? We'll get one at the beginning of the year. We'll get one during training camp. We'll get one at the end of the year.
You know what?
We'll get one after the market closes. We get 3 or 4 goal max, and it's
honestly that's honestly a lot better than other MLS teams. I know people give a lot of shit to CF Montreal for the availabilities and all that, but look at other MLS teams. They don't expose their leaderships maybe once a year.
But at the same time, they don't get the same and we've also talked about it. MLS coverage in Montreal is significantly more prevalent than a lot of other clubs. Clubs that spend more money on more players and have better turnouts and have better players and better seasons have less media coverage if you're not called Inter Miami or LAFC.
Yeah.
But the point still stands. Year-long coverage, Montreal is very high up that list. So
yeah,
that warrants more exposure of the leadership in the front office.
I agree with you. And we had one last question before we move on to our next topic. We had Pat's question. Very interesting question. Mr. B Dubs asks, seems like a slight change in direction. Think we will see a day where we have 3 DPs in the not too distant future? Nope. My answer is no to that. What do you think about this?
No.
They've made it very clear.
I think they're going to stick with the 4 U22s and the 2 DPs. I think that's a perfectly fine layout if you want. You just got to pay. You got to splash some cash for those U22s. You got to make sure that they are sure things and they are studs, or else you're kind of just spending money for no reason.
Yeah. Agree with you. All right, we're going to move on to our next topic because we did talk a lot about CF Montreal, but there was something also that happened with the other team in Montreal.
Not to be outdone.
Because again, I was checking my tweets during anxiously waiting for that next CF Montreal signing and was not expecting to see that. Elias, pull up that message that popped up. So Roses FC, the Montreal Roses confirmed that Latifa Abdul has requested a contract release to continue her career in an environment better suited to her personal goals and playing style. The organization fully respects her decision. Prior to this request, very important, prior to this request, the club had already informed Latifa of its intention to exercise the option in her contract for the 2026 season. And then Marina Pichon gave her own message. We strongly believe that every player should be able to thrive in an environment that reflects who they are. When an athlete clearly expresses a desire for change, our role is to support them and help prepare the next step in their career. Great. Fantastic. Really nice message. WTF. What were your thoughts?
Yeah. I was actually on my walking to Hamilton, which is fantastic, by the way. Everyone should go watch it. It's spectacular. It's my favorite musical, but whatever.
I love that show.
I stopped dead in my tracks going like, what? And I sent it to the group chat and I was like, what the fuck just why is this being dropped on my lap on like a Wednesday? Was it Wednesday evening out of nowhere? And I was like, fuck, okay. But I guess it's a Montreal thing to kind of just drop bombs out of nowhere. So look, I will get into the effect it's had on the field when we talk about the game, but just from a vibe standpoint and just from an optics perspective, this is such a dumb move. If you want to leave and you tell the club, look, I want an environment that's better suited, exactly what was said in the
wait, dumb for the team or for the players?
For both sides look dumb in this, because Latifa Abdul looks like someone that wanted out of a winning team by any means necessary, of which she was arguably the best player. And now the club looks like a team that can hold down a top player, when we know that's not the case, because there's a bunch of top players on this team, including a former French international. So that's not the reality, but it's the optics. Latifa Abdul very well could have said, I know that you're trying to extend my option for next year. Don't, and let me leave. And then she leaves as a free agent at the end of the year, and then everybody's happy.
Yeah.
And then there's no problems. Because what this tells me is that she wants to go to Europe. The reason she wanted it done now is because the women's leagues have not started their season yet, like the men's leagues. They are still at the tail end of preseason, but they're still in preseason. So what I'm getting is that she wants to go to Europe. But at the same time, it's an entirely different reality And with all due respect to Latif Abdul, who has been at moments the best player in the league, let alone the best player in the Roses, the consistency is not necessarily there. And if you're going to go to Europe and you're expecting to play at the top level, and you're, whether it's a team on the outskirts of the Champions League or the new secondary women's European competition, I don't remember what it's called. I think it's just the Europa Cup. But if you're going to be, if you want to go to a team, for example, that is fighting for European competition, nothing about Barcelona or Chelsea or Bayern, but just even like, a middle or lower part of that competition, your consistency is not at the required level. So if you're looking for NWSL, that they have the same schedule as the NSL. So just go for the end of the season. This is clearly a move for Europe, and I don't understand why the timing is as poor as it is, because nobody looks good in this situation. Latif Abdul doesn't look good, and the Roses don't look good.
And we talked about in this show, we were actually Latif Abdul, we threw flowers at her when she did some fantastic goals, some bangers here in the NSL that were highlight reels and had some good moments. But you're absolutely right. Her consistency, there were games where she just disappeared and was completely ineffective. And not just her. The team doesn't revolve around her, but there were definitely moments where it was frustrating to see how she would force some shots or whatnot. Now, the timing of the move also is very, very weird to me, because we just passed the halfway point of the season. That a lot of at this point kind of focused on taking that first place in the standings, and also finishing off the season in the right place. And it just, the statement clearly says, Elias, this is to focus on her own personal goals. And they also, and the way I'm reading it right now is the team told her, we want to exercise your option. But not only did you not say no to exercise the option for next year, you said, I want to leave now. So that's what's a little bit weird to me. You lost the whole player in one instead of just finishing off the season. So the message is very strange. The circumstances are also very strange. Do you think this move makes Roses FC look bad? Or maybe, because I know you spoke a little bit about how this makes Roses FC look, but how does it look for the NSL? Because you mentioned it, maybe like everything points to her wanting to go to Europe, but does it make the NSL look bad when she does this in the middle of the season?
Only if this becomes a trend. If it's just one player, you can chalk it up to an isolated incident. We don't know what the élément déclencheur was that led to her formally requesting to be let out of her contract. So we don't know as much information. I don't think we ever will know the deep, dark secrets unless somebody breaks the story. Yeah. But I think that as long as it's not a trend where you see top players from every single team saying, I need to go somewhere else, then you have something to worry about. But if it's just Latif Abdul, even if it's like one player per year that wants to get out of their contract, then it's not a problem. If it's multiple players, then you should start sweating.
And that's what I think makes it such a big announcement, is because Roses FC have a lot of players. They have a lot of players. But Latif Abdul was a starter for Roses FC, and was a very impactful player. You leave a huge gap. You're leaving a huge gap in the team. And as far as, and you're absolutely right. Like, looking back at this, maybe in 5 years, I don't know, 2 years, I don't know how long it's going to take. We're going to see Latif Abdul's progression in Europe, wherever it is that she goes, and we'll see whether it was the right move. Even maybe she'll come out and say, I don't know if it was the right move to leave Roses FC at that moment. But if it happens too frequently that players quickly give up on the project, then there's something seriously wrong, maybe within the league or the team itself. Where do you think Roses FC got to go from here, man? Because they just lost a huge piece. I mean, we're not talking about, Tanya Boychuk, which is another huge piece, but they lost a big piece. Where do they go? What do you think? But we did talk about the week previous about the other player that they signed. But where do they go?
You make do with what you can, right? Again, like we said, Latif Abdul was very important and a very lethal part of that attack. But Megan Sauvé, Noémie Paquin, Tanya Boychuk, even Claire Monod have all had really good moments. Now it's up to them to kind of step up. Again, with Kang Chae Kim, who's coming in, and we'll talk about how good she was after later in the pod. But you have those 5 players now as your attacking core. You have all the quality needed to succeed in NSL. So that, that's not really an excuse. It's maybe an excuse in the immediate future of we have to now adapt to life without Latif Abdou. But if we're still talking about, oh, there's no Latif Abdou in a month, that's not a good enough reason.
Yeah, yeah. No, again, I agree with you. That's they have to make do, and I think we'll talk about it a little bit later. But the fact that Cherem Kang signed might actually be the ultimate replacement, and it's something that we're gonna have to keep an eye on for the next seasons, for the next game. Sorry, for the next few weeks. But okay, so we'll talk about the last topic of the week before we get into the games, right? Um, the rumors, Elias, have become louder and louder as the months go by, starting from last year, and it almost seems like a given that Quebec will have a CPL team in 2026. Oh my god, just me saying that is insane, and most likely in Montreal. Even the CPL came out with a vague statement. I'm going to say vague. I'm the one that added that. But at the same time, a very important one. The CPL said the Canadian Premier League welcomed prospective investors to Toronto this week, who presented a vision for bringing a CPL club to Quebec in 2026. Quebec is an important market for the CPL, and we look forward to sharing more if and when an agreement is finalized. Very important here because Olivier Brett came out recently also saying that there is a Montreal CPL team coming out. And before that, it was Tony Marinaro. These are obviously big names in the soccer community that know, I think, everybody in the soccer community in Montreal. So when they say stuff like this, it's no joke. You had to believe it. So what are your thoughts when you see this? And now the CPL came out of it with that message. Like what are you thinking when you see this?
I am thrilled, obviously. I think that it's long overdue is an understatement with regards to CPL football in Quebec. It's by far the biggest untapped talent pool in North America. And the fact that you're going to get a professional club that is not, an MLS side here to kind of help navigate the pathway out of amateur football into professional football for Quebec players, super important. It's also important to remember that Angelo Pasto, who's one of the investors, has trademarked the name CF Supra, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it also means that we are very likely going to see a return of the Montreal Supra, which, again, that warms my heart to an extreme. And I'm super happy because if they pull off the vibe, the name, if they get the name, that's fine. That's one thing. But if they could pull off the aesthetic and the vibe of the Montreal Supra, that's going to be spectacular. It's going to be so cool. Again, it's about Quebec. I feel like almost more than any other soccer community, except maybe LA, the culture runs so deep. And if you can get the right homage and the right look and the right players there, because League One Quebec and League Two Quebec have an insane amount of talent, you could get a lot of attention, especially from the younger community whose attention is, yes, obviously still with CF Montreal, but again, League One and League Two teams have had really good turnouts to their games, especially the top games between the top clubs in each league. So if they can manage to replicate that kind of environment and they can really get the culture part of it down right, you could see an insane turnout. My only problem is that Quebec City should have been considered. And I know saying that as a Montrealer, giving any kind of flowers to Quebec City is blasphemy. But Tate, we are sharing a brain cell. But surprised they didn't choose Quebec City. I think Quebec City would have made a lot more sense because they have the ramparts, and that's pretty much it. They don't have any other high level elite professional sporting there. So you would have basically the entire market to yourself for professional sports. Quebec City is a growing soccer community. Some of their clubs are at at the level of Montreal clubs. So the quality of the football there is excellent. You're still in the province, and you have an entire market share instead of competing with two soccer teams that are already established and then another 4 professional teams on top of that. Yeah. So I think Quebec City deserved a fair shot, but I'm not surprised it ended up being Montreal and Laval.
Yeah, and I do think this is an extreme move for the if it ends up being Montreal, which again all points sign that it's going to be that way. It's incredible for that, like as you mentioned, League One, League Two. There's finally going to be a clear path. If it doesn't work out with the CF Montreal Academy, or it doesn't work out with other academies, you always have another route where you can maybe be a late bloomer, or maybe it's the MLS is not what where you're meant to be, but you still have the opportunity to play in a professional team, and you'll have, you know, these young players will finally have another option, which I think is important. Now, do you think Montreal, because it feels like we just had this conversation, the same questions I'm asking you, Elias, the same topics we're talking about, feels like we talked about it a year ago with Roses FC instead.
That's true.
You know, like literally. So my question is, how important, and I asked about this with Rose FC, how important is it for the city? This new would it be for this team if it happens, if it goes through the CPL team?
Oh man, just from a football culture perspective, if they do this right, it's huge.
Are
It's
they ready?
huge because
You think it's ready for the
I think it's ready. I think you just look at the level to which the League One and League Two teams have grown over the past year, over the past 12 months. The culture part of Quebec soccer is ready for this if they get this right. And again, remember, like look at these jerseys. Look at these jerseys. They're phenomenal.
They are.
They're
Bomb.
gorgeous.
Yeah.
Right? The Montreal Supra had such clean jerseys. It's also a great way to kind of maybe bring in some of the older fans who remember the Montreal Supra, some of the older fans who are there in the late 80s, and to go, oh shit, the Montreal Supra. Wow, I haven't heard that name in 40 years because, well, it's been 40 years. Holy shit, it's been 40 years. Anyway, why am I saying it like I was there? But I don't know. This mid 80s is being 40 years ago is kind of crazy to me. But
yeah,
you know, that from a cultural perspective and from a grassroots organic fan base perspective, they're doing everything is there for them. They just have to convert on it now, because much like the Roses, right? You get everything right and you connect with your community, you're already in a phenomenal spot.
Well, you know what really showed me that this city is ready for a third soccer team, Elias, is how fast this community embraced Roses FC, which again is a new team and a new league. We're not talking about just a new team. We're talking about a new league. Literally, nobody knows nothing about what's going to happen with this team or this league at the beginning of the season. Yet the stadiums were packed. So this shows me that this city not only loves soccer, loves local soccer, and is there and is going to go on cold days, because there were cold days at Stade Boréal, but there were also super hot days, and people showed up. And I'll be very honest with you, Stade Boréal is kind of an improvised stadium. You know this, Elias, right? Not everything is perfectly, structured yet, and clearly there's some work to be done in that stadium. But the fans embraced it. The fans embraced every part of it. They embraced the weird maybe entrances or seats or whatever it may be. They embraced it because they want to support a local team. So that shows to me that another CPL team where you have other local talent, give other local talent the capability of displaying their talents, is seriously going to be important for this city and going to be important for them to show this. So super excited. And as you guys know, here at The Ball is Round, if they do end up having a CPL team, we will cover it.
Better believe we're going to cover that shit.
We're going to cover it.
5-hour podcast. Let's go.
We're going to be there. Yeah, because, this podcast isn't long enough, so we need to add more stuff to it. We're just going to keep adding stuff to it. So, no, but 100% we're going to be there because, obviously, we want to give you guys the ultimate coverage, and we appreciate your support. We hope you guys like what we say.
Yeah.
And speaking of that, I think we're done with the topic of the week. I think we talked a lot about what happened. And honestly, I think both you and I had a lot to get off of our chest about everything that happened. I think it's done for these Mickey years. But anyways, but okay, so let's get right into the games, okay? And we'll try and guys, we're gonna try to keep it short and sweet, but we're gonna get into it, okay? So let's start with, as always, with Rose FC, who won last night, not last night, yesterday, versus
Afternoon.
Calgary Wild FC, 2-0. Now, overall, this game, when I watched it, I was on the plane actually, but I had to rewatch it today. I saw a similar game than the first time I saw them around here in Montreal, where Calgary struggled wildly against Rose's.
Oh,
I'm a trophy husband. They struggled wildly against Rose's FC high pressure. They didn't know what to do with it, and this is something I saw, which I was surprised because you would think that again you face this team. I don't know what is the second, third time that they've already faced them in the season. You kind of want to see a change, maybe some kind of adaptation, something to not fall to that same thing that they did the first time around. And I just didn't see that from Calgary. And you saw Rose FC that said, "Hey, it works. We're going to keep on doing it." So that's what we showed. So we're going to break it down position by position. What do you think of their defense and goalkeeping? Because we did see a change. Oh, well, if you have the lineups, actually, I should put up the lineup. So big surprise, goalie change. Gabriel Lambert at goalie. Then we had Capadonna and Stephanie Hill at defense, with Whitaker on the right back, as well as Schenk on the left back, Bibo and Roy in the midfield. Paquin, Sauvé, Sherim, I don't want to say her last name wrong, and Boychuk as attacking. Karpenko on the bench, Hess on the bench. The reason why I say this is because some of these names we're used to seeing. Monyard, you mentioned her a little bit earlier, also on the bench. What were your thoughts when you saw the starting lineup like that?
it's about time. Again, we talked about it, right, 2 weeks ago, where Anna Karpenko has made a string of mistakes. And sometimes you need the competition and the reminder, and also just the break, the mental, step back that sometimes a goalie needs. And Gabrielle Lambert came back from injury, and she's fully fit, and she's already played. This is her fourth game? It would have been her fourth game in the league already. So it's not like she was just coming in for her first game. She's a proven commodity, and she's played well in her previous games. So I think that this was kind of a no-brainer. The rest of the lineup, honestly, I was not too surprised. We talked about Claire Monial, but also Claire Monial coming off the bench is really not that bad of a thing. I'm surprised that they had Kang Chae Rim on the wing, and that way that lets Tanya Boychuk finally tuck inside, because she was kind of not exiled to the wing, but
with Latif Abdou there,
with Latif Abdou cementing herself as the striker. Tanya Boychuk was being played out of position, and that's just the reality of when you have a player who's in excellent form and who's finding the back of the net consistently. You want her closer to the net. That's just logical. But Tanya Boychuk's maybe comfort level or involvement did kind of suffer a little bit. So the fact that she's back there, I was very happy to see that.
Yeah, and we'll get into the attack and everything we saw in the game. But yeah, absolutely. The lineup, I was surprised, but also, and when I say surprised, I don't mean it in a bad way, I do mean it in a good way, that I saw that Lambert was being given her chance, because I thought, as we mentioned in the show, Karpenko was struggling, and it wasn't just a skill struggling. It seemed like a mental struggling, in the sense where she seemed to be questioning everything she was doing, which was causing her to have some lapses that were really questionable. So hopefully the step back allows her to take 3 steps forward and maybe can come back stronger as a goalkeeper. But I was pleasantly surprised to see Boychuk. I was pleasantly surprised to see Paquin start over Monyard, because I don't think Monyard has had bad games. I thought that the last few weeks she maybe was less impactful than the first few times we saw her, but not bad games. And so I was surprised that Paquin got the start, because I was honestly unimpressed with the previous performances from Paquin. I didn't, even as a substitute, I didn't really see her as an impactful substitute. So I really wasn't sure what that selection was, but we'll talk about her game. But let's start with the goalkeeping and defense, right?
Yeah.
I'll get the head start on that. So goalkeeping, Lambert was off the charts last night. She did everything right. She had some clutch stops. Now, if we're going to compare Karpenko with her, it's going to be very difficult, because I don't think Karpenko has been faced where she was, at the goal. All the goals that she seems to have been given up have been one-on-ones, and really, are very difficult for any goalkeeper. But Lambert was faced with some pretty incredible shots by Calgary, and she was clutch. seemed very secure on goal, very secure. Didn't seem to doubt herself. She really was present, and I don't think she did anything wrong that or anything that made me question. Be like, maybe we need to bring Karpenko back. At this point, I'm okay with having Lambert play
Yeah.
the next few games. As far as the defense, absolutely loved Stephanie Hill's performance. I thought she was fantastic in the highline. She had a lot of interceptions, which helped, and she actually helped one of the goals with her high interception. Schenk, she does the job that she has to do. I don't think she's going to be the kind of left back that does, is a playmaker. She does her job. She does what she has to do, and that's what we'll get from her. So I think that's important because she actually unseated Jodie Smith from the beginning of the season and has maintained that spot. And you can see why, because she's very, very consistent with performance. But as I mentioned every week, Elias, I don't understand why they continue making Haley Whitaker start. Because to me, it's the same thing as Anna Karpenko. She's not having good games. I can understand one or two bad games. It happens to every player. At this point, it's become too consistent. Just the first 20 minutes alone, Elias, I counted, and honestly, I can't even see the stats because they don't share the stats individually. But I counted 5 turnovers just by Whitaker alone within the first 20 minutes of the first half. And I said, "This am I the only one seeing this? Like it's crazy. She's not having a good game. She's not being impactful defensively. She looks a bit confused for her positioning and everything. So I'm not sure. And I believe she played the full 90 minutes. She was never even subbed out. So then you had some subs, but I don't think they had any defense. I think Schenk was the only one that got subbed out with
for Smith,
with Jodie Smith. Yeah. So, but beyond that, Jodie Smith, again, nothing much to impress to say. Just did the job. What do you think of the defensive goalkeeping, Lois?
I mean, you said it all for Gabrielle Lambert. I think that she was excellent. I think that when she was called upon, she did not miss anything. She made 2 insane saves. Granted, one of the saves was because she got caught cheating. She was expecting a cross and she was cheating a little bit, turned into a shot, and she had to react quickly. Yeah. But again, the fact that she reacted quickly and did the job was impressive in and of itself. But again, I have nothing to fault Gabrielle Lambert for. She was rock solid for the entire game. And she proved that she has the ability to make those crazy saves when called upon. So good job for her. Lucy Capadonna and Stephanie Hill are, again, barring injury, are probably going to finish out the season.
Yeah,
they're so good together. They play off each other so well. They were bullying. Bolcom is her name. On the Calgary side,
she was mad.
and she's a strong player. She's physically imposing. She's good with the ball. She's good with her back to goal. And Hill and Capadonna were having none of it. They were so confident and so calm in the middle of the park. And honestly, look, you have players come in from NCAA, and we talked to Lucy Capadonna about her trajectory through NCAA and into professional football. That trajectory is very common. U Sports has not had the same kind of exposure. And having someone like Stephanie Hill, who granted was already in all RSEQ and in all an all Canadian when she was playing for McGill, but having someone like Stephanie Hill come in her first season and play at the level she's playing at is such a good thing for U Sports because they've been playing so well together, and I'm so happy. And you kind of said this. You kind of said it all with the fullbacks, right? Lara Schenk is reliable. She's probably one of the most consistent players on the team. You know exactly what you're going to get from her every single time she steps on the field. And when it comes to my left back, to my fullbacks, there's not much more you could ask for.
Yeah.
Haley Whitaker, on the other hand, it's been difficult, right? We've seen how good she could be. We've seen how involved in going forward she can be. We've seen how much of a spark plug, just in terms of corner flag to corner flag, how effective she can be. I think the biggest reason she hasn't really been rotated out of the squad is because there's just no one to replace her.
Yeah.
Right? Lara Schenk had a shift at right back for a bit, but that was purely rotational. She's a left back. So if Robert Rosatoyu wants to put Schenk and Smith together, that makes sense, but it's going to become an incredibly negative back line that don't give all that much going forward. They're going to be secure in possession and secure defensively. But if other teams are going to try and set up a low block and you have to break them down, Shank and Smith are not going to necessarily be the players to consistently provide the danger to break teams down. So Haley Whitaker, through purely a lack of depth, kind of finds herself as the only real option at right back. Yeah. And so I hope she kind of gets out of this funk, because again, we've seen the level she can play at, and not just over a one game, over her start to the season, the first 2 months of the season, she was excellent, right? So it's not a flash in the pan. We know that she can consistently deliver at this level. It just now I think it's a matter of maybe mentally just resetting and kind of finding her groove again, because it is tough to watch sometimes.
You know what really changed is the fact that they changed Latif Abdou.
They combined very well.
They combined very well. They understood each other. You could tell they understood each other's play, and they understood what the other expected, and one expected from the other. But then they put Latif Abdou to the front, and they put Tanya Boychuk to the right instead, and it just was a different game for both. It was a very different game. I think Haley Whitaker expects Boychuk to be, to be at a certain place that's Boychuk is not. It's just not going to do it. So let's go on and move on to the midfield, where we had Roy and Bibo. I like their performance. I like
Felicia Roy's game.
Yeah, you know what? And because Ali Hess was benched, I mentioned a little bit earlier, right? And she's played most, if not all. I checked it, and it's not all the games throughout the season, but she's played a majority part of the games. And I was surprised to see her on the bench, but I also was very excited to see more of Roy, because I do think she's a young talent, and we haven't seen enough. And Ali Hess has, to me personally, in my opinion, has had some frustrating moments in some games where she has a lot of turnovers. I mentioned it in this show. I liked, and she had an assist in I believe it was the first goal. And the second goal also was a big contributor. So I like the vision she sees, creativity offensively. I saw her spreading the ball really well, a very quick touch, quickly reads the game. Compliments Bibo very well, because Bibo, as we mentioned here, we saw her take one shot at goal yesterday, which was not pretty. It was a floater. So that's clearly what we're going to get. What we're going to get from Bibo on offense, but very, very strong defensively, and clearly dictates the midfield. Why are my words going stupid right now?
It's the rust, man. We talked about this. It's just
I'm so bad right now.
It's the pregame. It's the week off rust. Yeah.
What's going on right now? I'm so sorry, guys. So I feel like Bibo dictates the midfield really well, and Roy also was very complimentary. Like the combination. Want to see more of it. I don't know if it's going to be the case. Maybe they just wanted to give Ali Hess a rest, because she didn't come in at the game at all.
No, it's the first game of the season where she has not played at all this game.
Yeah, so. And she and you saw pregame that she was actually the one talking in the huddle, in the team huddle before the game, which goes to show that she is a leader, which makes sense why they wouldn't want to put her on midfield. But that doesn't take away from bad performances. So very excited to see. What'd you think of the midfield?
I loved it. I loved every single bit of it. Charlotte Bilbao is still really strong. I feel like against a team like Calgary, where the key to the game is pinning them back in their own end and then being effective, I really like just that they were able to kind of get her on the ball as much as possible, not necessarily near the net, right? Felicia Roy did a great job of breaking those lines and kind of being a good counterpart further forward, where Ali Hess is kind of the workhorse in the midfield. Felicia Roy is just more of a creative player. And I think that we talked about how difficult it was for them to create goals. And you have someone like Felicia Roy who comes in, who is able to deliver a really good final ball and really kind of break those lines, especially in the final third. I was really happy. I think that they did everything that was asked of them. They didn't lose the midfield battle at any point that I feel like they were getting overrun. And yeah, again, this was a very poor game from Calgary. They played terribly. They provided no offense. They're lucky that Montreal didn't score like another 3 or 4 goals, especially in that first half. So I think that honestly, you have to beat the team in front of you. and they made it very easy. But you still have to play at a certain level and assure that enforce that kind of quality. And Felicia Roy and Charlotte Bibot did that. So again, a superhuman effort from them wasn't necessarily needed, but they did play well enough to get the job done. And that's the best you could ask for them, especially when you've been kind of struggling to string together wins lately. You take it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we also had some subs that came in the midfield. Myra Bouchard, if I'm not
Yep.
mistaken, came in, and that was pretty much the only. And Laurie Thibault, which was an
Yep.
attacking, but we're gonna get into that. Nothing impressive to me. We haven't seen again much of them in this season, but they didn't do much to impress me. So I don't know if you had something to add about that. If not, we'll
No,
move on.
I mean, again, they did the job. They were there to see the game out, and they did. It's good to see that you can have players come on that aren't Ali Hess in the midfield, and it's not a disaster,
A drop.
right? They just, I mean, there was a little bit of a drop, but in terms of intensity, it was still there, and in terms of seeing the game out, they did exactly what was asked of them. So if I'm Robert Rosatoye, I'm happy with that.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned that Calgary did let Roses FC play their game. I mean, they
Yeah,
didn't
they
do
didn't.
anything.
They were just they were passengers, and
Yeah,
for 90 minutes they were passengers.
I was
So yeah.
honestly surprised. I mean, they did attack at some point, but it came to nothing. And Lambert, like as we mentioned earlier, made some clutch saves, but beyond that, it was very normal game. Let's talk about the attack. Paquin on the left. I'm not gonna get to Mrs. Kang yet because I think we have a lot to talk about her, right? Because it was Sharim Kang's first start with the team. I think this was Paquin's game where she should have showed the most because it's her first start in a while, and obviously Monyard is right there, also like giving a lot of reasons why she should start. And again, Paquin hasn't shown much to me to consider her a starter. I think she had
Yeah.
chances, she had opportunities to score, and she just didn't impress for me. I don't know if Claire Magnard had some minutes at the end of the game where she again showed that she can be very, very good with the high press. But also Boychuk, I didn't want to talk about Boychuk because it does. One thing that did impress me about Tanya Boychuk was that she goes full on until the 90 minutes, never stops as an engine. But at the same time, there's moments where she kind of disappears throughout the game and I've said this in the past, that where she, as you mentioned, wasn't playing maybe her natural position on the right wing, where clearly it's not really what fits her game. And I felt like playing on the 9, she was a lot better as a distributor to those around her. But still, there seems to have I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on with the Tanya Boychuk. It just feels like sometimes she's maybe a little too hungry. She hasn't scored in a month, and for a striker, that's brutal for her to go more than a week or two without scoring. And beyond that, yeah, let's talk about Sherin because she did what a game. What a game. She literally,
what way to introduce yourself to
she adds an element to this team, which I didn't even know they were missing. She adds speed, like some speed and like a very intense high press where she clearly is and she played the full 90 minutes, didn't get replaced, and was still showing high speed, very locked in the game. Clearly, some people might even say a shit disturber in the front, where she was just like, a very, very impressive game. What'd you think of the attack?
Oh, I loved it. I loved what she brought. I think Tanya Boychuk looked a lot freer. There were moments where she kind of faded into the background a little bit, but there was also moments where she looked just every bit as effective as she did at the beginning of the season. And again, that's probably going to take some time to get her back into just the comfort level. She's playing with a new winger on her side. She has not played with Felicia Roy all that often, so there's still some new elements, but everything I saw from her and her work rate is still at that high. Her quality is still there. It's about getting her on the ball now, especially getting her on the ball in space. I think it's going to be great, especially now that it's not her preferred position, but she has done shifts on the right side. Having her and Kang Chae-rim swapping in and out could be really good to just add another element of unpredictability and a bit of chaos, because again, a little chaos going forward never hurt nobody. On the left side, I was a little disappointed. I get that, when Jerem is playing at such a high level and she's kind of dictating, she's getting on the ball every chance she can, and that left side of the Calgary defense was just miserable. The other side of the attackers on the other side maybe don't get as much love. Megan Sauvé and Noemi Paquin didn't really get as much to do. But I feel like Megan Sauvé did have a couple interesting runs in behind. I feel like she did kind of work the back line a little bit more than Noemi Paquin. I think that Claire Monniard should probably play the next game instead of Noemi Paquin, just to kind of, again, things are going well and you want to capitalize on this chance to see what works, right? Yeah. You have a fairly, not an easy schedule, but next to besides Ottawa, the only other top 3 team you're playing is Toronto in the last game of the season. So you do have a bit more leeway in terms of being able to, try something new and try something different. I think it's Claire Monniard's earned a chance to definitely, stake her claim, because Noemi Paquin, who I still think had an okay game, definitely hasn't done enough to say I deserve to start again no matter what.
Yeah. And I didn't even talk about Megan Sauvé because I've spoken about it in this show before, Elias, and I've always said, I'm not sure really what she brings to her game, because especially when you have a Kangshir Sherim that brings, on the right side, brings clearly speed, creativity. Her cross is very, very interesting. Megan Sauvé, it didn't feel like she was at her best. Doesn't really gets beat out frequently by defenders physically. They just beat her out, and she's not the speediest winger either, which again makes it sometimes complicated to set up any attack. Now the difference with having Paquin or Monniard there on that side is that Monniard, I believe, allows Megan Sauvé to play a little bit freer, where she doesn't have to beat out other defenders. She doesn't have to physically, because Monniard is more the physical attacker that will beat out the defenders, and Megan Sauvé can kind of do her thing. But you have Paquin and Sauvé pretty much the same profile. You're not going to create much on the left side. So that's where I'm a little bit you have to find the right combination to either see the best of Megan Sauvé or see the best of Paquin, because maybe Paquin is the one that's suffering from having Megan Sauvé on that side. So we're going to see what's going to come out of this. Definitely very, very excited to see the attack, and hopefully the defense can show up their issues as well. Let's move on to the last topic of the day. Big pod, guys, as we told you, and we always like to thank you guys for joining us for our pod. But just a quick reminder, just before we get started on the last topic, if you like what you listen, if you like what you saw, make sure to click on the subscribe button to support The Ball Is Round. You can follow us on Blue Sky, on X, on YouTube, to support us. And also make sure to sign up for the Patreon, so that, because we see you guys and we appreciate the support, and we love having you guys be part of this team. All right, so let's get right into it. CF Montreal played last night versus Austin FC. And they won 3-2. That's Saputo. What a game. Oh, what a game. Dude, what a game. My God. It was just overall. Let's pull up the lineup right here so we can go ahead and talk about it. Hey, by the way, they changed.
I love the change. The video, the Montreal, the chanting in the background. Bravo. To the media people and the comms people, bravo.
They're doing such I was like, what is this? And I was like, this is beautiful. I love it. They, again, trying to just feel connected. I'm just going to do a quick thing here, Elias, okay? I've been a big fan of the changes that have been going on as far as social media. Okay, because they've been releasing a lot of videos, especially when it came about Luca Saputo and the Saputo brothers and everybody going through the transfer window, where it shows guys, this is what we're going through. We're human. We're struggling. They do the description of I'm just a fan. Just wanted to add that. Big fan of the changes that they're doing in social media.
Yeah,
I think it's important. Sure. I think the team needs the content, and I think some people might use it.
Sorry.
What the hell, Elias?
Sorry, Andy. We're all rusty, okay? We're all rusty.
What is going on with this show tonight, man? Anyways, back to the starting lineup. So last night we had Gillier at goalie. We had Alvarez and Morales on the back line. We had Petros on the left back, Bugai on the right back. Matty Longstaff and Loturi on the midfield with Sinchuk on the right side, Sealy on the left side. Oger Escobar getting his first start with the in the MLS. Prince Owusu, who was questioned, just reading the start line, and Prince Owusu, who got his start, which he was kind of in doubt this week with he didn't seem to be fully practicing, but he was there, and he didn't play the full 90 minutes, but he was there. Cool. Let's go ahead and talk about it. What were your overall thoughts of the game?
Oh, wow. Spectacular. We'll talk. I mean,
let's not talk about the refs.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about the refs. But if we're going to talk about like defending specifically, Thomas Gillier had a good game. He was kind of put in a weird spot for both of those goals. The second goal was a 1v1. The first goal was a very awkward header. He did misjudge a little bit, maybe, but like that's more of a defensive marking problem than anything else. But again, I really like him with the ball at his feet, playing out from the back. He looks really good. And if I'm Jonathan Sirois, I'm looking at this and I'm going, well, shit, because there's not a single thing you could say that would justify taking Thomas Gillier out of the net right now. There's not a single thing you could say that would get him out of that goal and put Jonathan Sirois back in right now. So if I'm Jonathan Sirois, then maybe I did wish I left it during the window, because Thomas Gillier looks like $1 million and he's playing like it too. This was it was going to happen eventually, but we finally have an Efrain Morales stinker. It was inevitable, right? Yeah. He did not play well. He gave up the ball a lot. He was caught out all the time. He made a bunch of different mistakes. It was a lack of focus, and sometimes it was just a lack of communication with Alvarez. Excuse me. So I was very disappointed in that game. He just got here. He was not going to play like George Campbell for the entire time, right? He's there's going to be a learning curve. There's going to be growth needed, obviously. But yeah, he did not play well. Fernando Alvarez had a much more solid game than what we've seen from him this year. And honestly, I think he played well. I didn't understand why he got hooked. We were kind of talking about it in the press box. If someone was going to get hooked, it was going to be Efrain Morales. But Marco Dundal kind of explained that it was for the yellow card situation. He wanted to make sure that no matter what, he had two center backs for Toronto next week, which is a very fair concern, because Jalen Neal is likely done until, if not for the season, until the very end of the season.
It's going to be for the season, man.
Like it's 4 to 6 weeks, right? So if it's closer to 4, then maybe. But if it's going to go all the way to 6 weeks, there's going to be one game after that. May as well just not play him. Just shut him down for the year. Yeah. It's been a rough enough season for him as is. And the fullbacks. Oh, the fullbacks.
What are we even talking about, man? Dude,
two confident fullbacks on the field at the same time. What a world we live in. Petrasso and Bugay were excellent. Bugay defensively has always been solid, but going forward, the crosses he was putting in yesterday were the crosses. He should have had a second assist when he spoon-fed Owusu a free header in the middle of the area right at the start of the second half. Couldn't convert. That happens, unfortunate. But the ball to convert on the first goal was
yeah.
So again, both of them had excellent game. Luca Petrasso has been arguably the most consistent player this season, from start to finish. And David Bugay, the second they went to a 4-back, he's been just as good. So hell yeah, man.
Yeah, I agree. And look, I something I did want to mention, because the first thing is I did want to, to get your impressions on the game. Something I did want to point out was that something I really liked is at halftime they actually showed there was even Jaime that went ahead and they presented, which was really cool, because again, I asked you to write Elias in the press box. I said, when was the last time they did this for any player that just signed? They just present it and give them a chance to get that appreciation. Even if people have no idea who even Jaime is, they at least he gets his moment of, that he can share on his social media, and get that moment of appreciation. But also the vibe in Saputo last night after the win. I mean, I haven't heard Saputo like that. I'm sorry to say, but I haven't heard him like that all season.
We were behind the plexiglass in the press box, and it was still shaking. I was
it
like,
was
this
shaking,
is a good night.
And it was
this
not
would have been a good night to have the window out, because that was
it wasn't a pack. It wasn't a packed stadium. It wasn't a full stadium, but man, the CF Montreal fans were loud and they were happy yesterday. It was a great game. So that's overall the game. But yes, going to goalie, Gillier, outstanding performance. Doesn't seem to take a step wrong. And it almost feels like Jonathan Sirois is the victim of what Jonathan Sirois did to James Potanis, even though it's not injury related. Is that moment where like you're just too good to go back. You're just too good. Gillier is just too good to have Jonathan Sirois. And Jonathan Sirois didn't do anything wrong. It's just that he didn't do more. He wasn't outstanding. He did what he had to do. He did his job, and that was it. But I think this team was looking for a goalie that could do more than just do your simple job. Be somebody that's loud in the goal and is willing to fight players, because he's willing to fight players that just And I just think that Jonathan Sirois is not the same profile at all. Not saying that he's bad, but when you have someone like Thomas Gillier, it makes you question a lot of things. And I'm sure Jonathan Sirois might be looking, like, as you mentioned, what's going to happen in his future here in Montreal. Defense, Efrain Morales was my flop of the game. I thought he had and it's understandable. He's young. George Campbell had those games before he obviously became George Campbell of CF Montreal that dominates every game. David Bougaï, I think I want to say that the element déclencheur that made him, it seems, all of a sudden see the best version. Yes, you mentioned the change of scheme, but ever since Hennady Sinchuk has been on that side with him, those two have been wow. It's like one makes the other better, and they make each other confident, because Hennady Sinchuk, and we'll get into the winger position a bit, Hennady Sinchuk has an incredible defensive engine, in the sense that he's not just going to be like, I'm a pure winger and I'm here to attack, kind of like, stay here and send me the ball. No, he'll go back and he'll help. He'll help David Bougaï. And you mentioned about David Bougaï's cross. Holy smokes, what a cross on that goal.
Where the hell did that come from?
Wow, it's just so precise. It was an elite cross that only guess who can do that cross?
David Bougaï.
No, Tom Peters on the other side. But he's not playing because he can't do anything else. So, but anyway, so speaking of subs, then we also had Tom Peters that came in for a few minutes. He did very Tom Peters. I looked at your list. I was like, you need to defend the game. You need to defend the lead, and you bring Tom Peters. I
think they're still making substitute. Who else is on the field, man? There's nobody on the bench. There's nobody else
on the left wing that goes to right back.
There's no one else. Bodie Hidalgo's not there yet because for the same reason Kane Clark and Joe Waterman didn't play last week. It's visa reasons. There's nobody else.
So
there's physically literally nobody else that could play that position at this point. Put fucking Dante Sealy left back, and then hope for the best.
Don't jinx it. But
they need to sign another fullback. It's just a reality.
Get anybody literally to play fullback, because it doesn't make sense. And I asked Donadel yesterday, I was like, do you still feel like after the transfer market is done that we're in an emergency situation, that CF Montreal's playing in an emergency? He's like, yeah, it's always emergency. I love emergency. I'm like, okay, all right, well, I guess you got your
to it.
Yes, it's like I don't even know what normal is anymore. I'm like, okay, all right. So let's move on to our midfield. We had Latori, right? And we had Longstaff. Now, Prince Owusu mentioned it in the press conference. He said that kid Longstaff can make runs that are inhuman.
Forever.
He can run forever. Now, Elias, I was actually laughing when he was saying that, because I was like, in this show, we've mentioned a player that never stops running, seems to have all the energy in the world, and seems to be there. Who is it?
Victor
Latori. So now you have a player saying that Matty Longstaff is that same exact profile. So we literally have two players with this that non-stop run that seem to cover the whole field. I think we're starting to get an idea of the kind of profile, the kind of data analysis that CF Montreal is doing in their signings. They want players that don't stop, that are, that maybe are not the most technically high. They're okay, but they have an engine that doesn't stop running. players that are leaving, Elias, did not have those kind of profiles, that did not stop running. We're talking about Sunusi Ibrahim, Mahalo Poku, other players, Anthony
Dominic
Vincent,
Yankov.
whatever. Dominic Yankov, that stopped at a certain point. They said, I think that's good. So Prince Owosu, non-stop engine. He never stops running. He full 90 minutes. So what were your impressions on the midfield? The first time we see the
Look, when you're playing in a double pivot like that and you're asked to play man to man and you're just giving the midfield to so much to do, you need someone that can run. And I think we finally found someone that could actually keep up with Victor Laturi from a work rate perspective. Every team Matty Longstaff has been at, he's been the workhorse, whether it's Newcastle, TFC, or now here. He is, again, he's not the workhorse anymore. He's just one of the two. And for the first game played together, the both of them looked like two peas in a pod. I was extremely surprised with how quickly they got along and how quickly their running complemented each other. Because if you have two Energizer bunnies on the field at the same time that cover just an insane amount of space for 90 minutes, or in Longstaff's case for a bit less, it's a dream come true. Because now you have someone like Samuel Piet, when he's fit and healthy, that can come off the bench and be more effective in what is becoming an increasingly limited amount of time that he is effective. You also have someone like Bryce Duke that can come on if you need that kind of profile. You also have Brendan Craig, who's shown he's capable. I still think when the market opens, they need a top-tier playmaker in the midfield. But Matty Longstaff is technically very strong, and he's got the engine to keep up with what Marco Donadel wants in the midfield, which is man-to-man and super aggressive and just an insane amount of running. So for the rest of the season, that's my pairing, especially because there's no more midweek games. That's my pairing until the end of the year. I don't want to see anyone else, barring injury. I don't want to see anyone else start in the midfield too, except for them, because if you're planning on keeping them for the next year, you need them to get minutes together anyway, and there's no better time than now.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like I felt like they covered such big parts of the field. It never felt like the midfield somebody was misplaced. Yeah, they were goals and all that, and we can look at each piece of the goal. But at the end of the day, in the full 90 minutes, the midfield was a big part of what we saw. And I think it was a theme of the whole season, where the goals were individual mistakes of players, where it wasn't. And we kind of talked about in the press box, right, Elias? I told you that in one of the goals, I felt like it was Luca Saputo, but then it was also bad coverage somewhere else. It was just like a domino effect of things going. And at some point, I think the first goal, it just seemed like everybody was kind of misplaced. But overall in the game, Matty Longstaff had a very, very interesting, very interesting game, where he was very active, very, very involved in the build-ups, and constantly, also very as a physical midfielder. Yeah. Victor Laturi, also very consistent in what he's always shown. Again, this doesn't mean that he's going to be necessarily your playmaker or he's going to be the game changer, but he's going to do his job. And this is all I think anybody can ask from their midfielders. So I do want to see them get more minutes together. I want to see how both profiles fit together, because they seem to be very, very similar profiles, but that doesn't take away that maybe they're just MLS level players, and they, as you mentioned, they need players that have bigger ambitions, that want to dominate the midfield in order to take that next step. Because that's what makes the biggest difference, in my opinion, Elias, is when a player says, I don't want to just be good in CF Montreal. I want to be good enough to go to the next step. So I'm going to kill it while I'm in MLS. Yep. I'm going to destroy the competition. That's what you want. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I definitely want to know. Now, I do think that they played. I was looking here. They did play the full 90 minutes, the two of them, and that's great. I think that was.
I thought Longstaff came off. Oh, well, right. Even better.
No. He didn't. He didn't. Matthew Longstaff never came. The attack only changed, which we're gonna get right into it. The attack, where we had Oger Escobar getting his first start, Hennady Sinchuk, Dante Seeley, both wingers scored goals, and Prince Owosu scored the third goal. Wow, what an attack! Honestly, what a night for the attack. I mentioned to you before the game, Elias, I told you, because as we mentioned in the halftime, they showcase their new DP signing and Ivan Jaime. This was Dante Seeley's game to prove that he deserves a starting spot, deserves to play the rest of the season, because Ivan Jaime is ready to go. He was ready to go yesterday. That's what the coach told Luca Saputo told us. He was like, he's ready to play yesterday, but they told him, learn your stuff first, and then you can take the field, right? But this was Dante Seeley's game to I guess convince the coaching staff. What'd you think of his game? What'd you think of and I pick on Dante Seeley specifically because I feel like he really needed to impress this game.
Yeah, absolutely. It was nice to see him kind of put on the left side where his role was a bit simplified. It wasn't, I need you to provide width and also cut into the middle and also play that deadly ball and also no. Your job is to make runs in behind, to make life difficult for the fullback, and to play crosses in. And he did that to a T. He did that perfectly. And I like this game. I like Dante Seeley when his role is clear. When you ask him to do too much, when you ask him to carry the offense, it gets dubious, right? And again, we talked about the bang for your buck, right? Having someone like Dante Seeley who can come off the bench, because realistically, he's not starting over Ivan Jaime. That's just the reality, right? He's not starting over Ivan Jaime. Maybe over Escobar, because Marco Donadel seems to be a little bit reluctant to pull the trigger on having him consistently start. He played just over an hour, and he did well. He did very well. He was my man of the match personally, but Seeley did his job. And having someone like Dante Seeley, once Ivan Jaime hits the ground running and is starting, having someone like Dante Seeley coming off the bench as an extra gut punch, like defenders are going to see that and see him make one run and go, oh, fuck. Right? Like it's going to be exhausting. And that way you don't have to worry about Dante Seeley managing his cardio. You just have him say, go out there for the last half hour, 45 minutes, 50, whatever you need from him, and have him run. Have him run the other defenses into the ground. And at the same time, you get someone who's got he hits the ball super clean. Whether it ends up on net or in rosette is entirely up to him. Mm-hmm. But it's someone that could hit the ball in with pace. You have somebody attacking the box. He has everything needed to be super effective and super lethal, super sub. So yeah, I don't think he scored. He got on the end of a beautiful goal. Beautiful team goal, best goal of the season in my eyes. Donadel said it was one of the nicest goals he's ever seen. I don't know about all that, but it was definitely a phenomenal goal.
And he asked you, he was like, "Do you agree with me?" Please
I was sitting there like, I mean, no, but like it was definitely an excellent goal. So, but no, it was spectacular. Every single pass was bop, 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 goal. It was beautiful, right? From Morales kicking off the play to Bugai putting the finishing touch and Seeley finishing. It was excellent, but no, I mean he didn't do enough to start. Ivan Jaime is going to be the starter once he's ready. That's just the reality of the situation.
Yeah, I don't think this team sees Dante Seeley as a starter for this team. Doesn't mean he can't be a starter in another MLS team, but I don't think they see him here. I think maybe at the start of the season they didn't even see him as a starter because
they saw him as a left back. Remember?
As a left wing back. Yeah.
As a left wing back. That's what they saw him at the season.
Yeah, even then it was a replacement. I don't think they ever saw him as starter or a project, if you want. He was a trialist.
Yeah.
But he's proven that he is probably the only winger we had this whole season. And he did I think I'm not gonna say phenomenal, but he did a great job considering that he's learning the position to be natural, and also that he put in a lot of minutes, but he's not a starter. And I think yesterday he displayed that he's very capable of doing the job, but he's not elite. He can, like you said, it's not even like he's one of those wingers that he's placed in a position to score and that he's going to score. He's a guaranteed scorer. No, that's just not who Dante Seeley is. Not yet, at least. He's very young still, but he's not clinical. You don't know what you're going to get from him. So that's not what you want from a starter. You want more of a clinical starter, and it'll take time. Maybe someone like, seeing like even Jaime play and maybe learning from his game, it's going to develop his game even further. But right now, I think even Jaime is going to, barring any injury, is going to fit into the season at left wing back. Oger Escobar, my God, what a game! I mean,
that was a game.
I know they've been asked. I know that a lot of fans have been asking for more minutes and more time and all that. And the coach was like, "Hold your horses." He still doesn't have all the minutes on that. But I felt like yesterday he just spread the field so nicely and he frustrated Austin. And it wasn't just one pass, the pass that everybody saw. It was multiple occasions where he really distributed the ball well, that one touch. And I felt just like yesterday overall, the team was very comfortable, just one touch. It didn't feel like new pieces get together. It felt like they'd been playing for a year together all the time, but it wasn't the case. And yesterday just felt very natural. And Oger Escobar was a big part of that, big element of that. The only thing I have about Oger Escobar that I like to see more is not get more minutes. It's when you're there, do it all the time. I mean, don't just disappear in phases of the game, right? Like you want to be, if you're going to be impactful, Georgi Mihailovic was impactful throughout the whole game. He wasn't impactful for 20 minutes and that's it. You want to see a full shift of it being impactful. Prince Owusu played a very Prince Owusu game. Honestly, again, we're going to talk about the refereeing. There were some questionable calls, but he is honestly the best player in this team, the best player to wear that captain's armband. Even if Bryce Duke wore it after he left. But you know what, Elias, I don't know when was the last time we saw this, but Prince Owusu when he got subbed out, went around the whole field and made it only to the front of the bench where we were 2-3 minutes. And I'm just watching the game and I just hear people clapping when he's walking. I'm like, oh, people noticed that Prince Owusu was walking and they made the effort to give him a standing ovation, which he deserves 100%. And not just
1,000,000%. He was fantastic. Again, the work he puts in. That was my biggest problem with Prince Owusu at the beginning of the season, is that everyone's looking at him as a replacement for Joseph Martinez, and Joseph Martinez scored 11 goals last year. Prince Owusu can score 11 goals. That was my problem. My problem is that Joseph Martinez made everyone around him actively better.
Yeah,
it took 6 months to figure it out, but Prince Owusu is finally making everyone around him play better. His link-up play is so much more than just hold the ball up and pass the ball, and then my job is done, and then I expect the ball on a play to score. No, he's getting involved in the play. He's coming out wide. He's making runs out wide. He's playing so much more involved, and I think that was the biggest thing taken away from him, was just that the fact that he was combining and then expected to be a poacher. No, they don't need a poacher right now. They need someone to work with the unit and then build together. Yeah. And wow, this game, the last 3 or 4 games, ever since the end of the League's Cup, has really shown how much he's improved in that perspective. And yeah, I mean, simply put, he is the best player on the team right now.
Yeah. And one of the players that honestly I think took advantage of a lot of that has been Hennady Sinchuk, which has been on the right, and he scored a goal yesterday, fantastic goal. And the thing is, you talked about Prince Owusu making players better around him. I think Hennady Sinchuk, and that surprises me so much about him, is how young he is, and yet he still manages to be very unselfish with his game and very smart about where he chooses to go, what he does off ball, and how he sets up, David Bugai on the right, and how they, sometimes it's hard to tell who's in what position because they switch so quick and are very quick to understanding each other's game that, Prince Owusu, Oger Escobar, all them were really benefited a lot from each other. And that's what you're seeing in the attack is everybody. Now, how is even Jaime going to enter into that kind of formula that's kind of working? It worked yesterday. It was they scored 3 goals at Stat Saputo. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that chemistry develops. But overall, I thought that the attack did really well. Bryce Duke came late. Bryce Duke did a very Bryce Duke performance, I felt. Didn't do anything much.
He was all right.
I mean didn't do much to impress me.
He's playing 10 for once, and this is his best performance at the 10 spot this season. So, I mean, again, the bar is low, but he was looking for stuff, which is nice.
Yeah, I know. And I mean, I'm not gonna say he had a bad game, but it's just, again, Bryce
20
Duke,
minutes, right? You can't really
to
say you've had a good or a bad game.
Same thing with Brandon Craig and Guboglu, right? They had very few minutes, but didn't show per se 1,000%. The most important thing is that once Fernando Alvarez was removed, Brandon Craig, the level didn't drop. That's the most important thing, because we've seen too many times that the level dropped. It was consistent.
Absolutely.
So that's the most important thing, guys. It's been an incredible show. It's been really long,
Oof.
and we do appreciate you guys staying. If you stuck with us to the end, if you didn't, that's fine. But we had a joy sharing these 2 hours with you.
Always a pleasure.
To talk everything CF Montreal, Rose FC, CPL, everything. Thank you all for joining us tonight. We hope you enjoyed tonight's show. As always, the podcast will always be free to listen and watch on all of our platforms. Make sure to check out our Patreon page for exclusive member content and all of our social media platforms for more content. And follow my account as well as Elias' personal account on X, Blue Sky, everywhere for daily updates.
Only follow mine. Don't follow Andy's. Come on.
Don't follow me. Big shout out to all of you who joined the Patreon this week. And thank you again to all of you who tuned in tonight. And see you next week for episode 237 of The Ball is Round. Peace.